Hi guys, this is Miss Toy, and today we're doing our Simple Solutions Lesson 15. Like the other lessons, you'll need a highlighter and a writing utensil. It's okay if you don't have a highlighter. So let's go ahead and begin reading our passage. Hernan Cortez was a Spanish conquistador. There is a bolded word, Hernan Cortez, so let's highlight that first sentence. When he arrived in Mexico, Cortez learned of the flourishing Aztec Empire and wanted to possess its wealth. He decided to conquer the Aztecs. As Cortez marched inland towards Tenochtitlan, he made an alliance with the enemies of the Aztecs. An alliance is a partnership in which two groups agree to work together toward a common goal. So, an alliance, let's highlight that. An alliance is a partnership in which two groups agree to work together toward a common goal. Cortez requested a meeting with the Aztec king, Montezuma, and he was welcomed peacefully into the capital city. Let's highlight that sentence. Cortez requested a meeting with the Aztec king. He was welcomed peacefully into the capital city. The size, beauty, and advanced culture of the Aztec capital amazed the Spanish conquistador. Eventually, Cortez imprisoned Montezuma in his own palace and removed images of the Aztec gods from the temples. When the Spaniards massacred unarmed Aztecs during a religious festival, the surviving Aztecs revolted against them. Although the Aztecs were successful in driving the Spaniards out of the capital, the victory was not long-lasting. Cortez made new alliances with other native groups. They successfully cut off supplies. As had happened with the Maya, the Aztecs' contact with the Spanish resulted in a smallpox epidemic that killed many Aztecs. The combination of disease and starvation severely weakened the Aztecs. The next time Cortez attacked the city, he was victorious. As soon as he became governor of the Aztec lands, Cortez destroyed all of the temples and buildings. He renamed the capital Mexico City and called the territory New Spain. So let's highlight that last sentence. Your passage should look like this. Okay, so our questions here are in a chart that compares Maya and the Aztecs. So let's take a look at this first thing on here. So the clues are they had a very advanced culture. So let's think about that. If you remember back in when we were talking about the Mayas, it did say that the Maya did have an advanced culture. But it also says that the Aztecs had an advanced culture in our previous lesson. So that one will be both. Alright, the next clue is developed a writing system. So as we remember, the Aztecs were really good at astronomy and the arts and stuff like that, but they also did invent a calendar and writing system, as well as the Mayans. So developed a writing system would be both as well. The island city, I butcher this capital name, I'm terribly sorry, but it is the capital of the Aztecs, not the Maya. So we know that that capital is going to be for the Aztecs. Great numbers were killed by smallpox and other diseases. Back when we were talking about the Maya, it did talk about the Maya being... when the Spanish explorers came over, they did have to, endure that smallpox epidemic, and the Aztecs did as well, as we talked about in our Aztec Part 1 and 2. So that would be for both. The next clue is constructed enormous pyramids. Now, I remember back when we were talking about the Mayas did build these big, enormous pyramids, and they were, really geometrical looking. And if you look, up the Mayan pyramids, I'm sure there's so many images that you can find. However, the Aztecs really did not. In our passages, they didn't talk about them, so that one will be Maya. The next clue is attacked by Spanish explorers. Now, as we just talked about from our Aztec passages, they did have Spanish conquistadors come in and conquer the Aztecs. But when we refer back to our Maya readings in our previous lessons, the Maya did decline as well and were attacked by the Spanish explorers. So for that clue, it is going to be both. The next clue is a pre-Columbian civilization in Mesoamerica. So, back in our lesson 14, we looked up that pre-Columbian definition, and it included, the Maya, the Aztecs, and the Inca. We're not talking about the Inca at the moment, but we are talking about the Maya and the Aztecs. So, a pre-Columbian civilization in Mesoamerica would be both. Okay. The next one is built floating gardens to grow food. Back in lesson 14, we talked about those floating gardens like along the rivers, and that was from the Aztecs. The Mayans really didn't partake in that, so that clue is going to be for the Aztecs. That's what you should have so far. Okay, the next one is devised a calendar. Now we know that both the Maya and the Aztecs developed a writing system and a calendar. So they both had their own systems of those. So for that clue, it would be both. And the next clue is began conquering neighboring civilizations in the 15th century. So if we go back to lesson 14, let's see here. In the 15th century, the Aztecs began conquering neighboring civilizations to increase their size and power. And I did look back at the Mayan lessons, and they really didn't talk much about that, so that would be mainly the Aztecs. And then the next clue is mysteriously declined after the year 900. If we remember back to our first lesson of the Mayas, they kind of did mysteriously decline due to numerous amount of things and speculation. So we know that the Aztecs stayed until way into like the 1500s and stuff. So for that clue, it will be the Maya. Now, this next clue were led by a king named Montezuma. We just now read that and we highlighted it in our passage. And this is for the Aztecs. So the last clue is we're led by a king would be for the Aztecs. And this is what your checklist should look like. And that is it for lesson 16. Thank you guys.